Hello and welcome to Image of Success. Hi, I'm Rita Rocker Kraft with Transformation Academy, and I'm here with one program for you today talking about perception, power, and professionalism. So be sure to join me each week as we talk about different subjects professionally as well as many personally as you learn and grow in your own transformation and in creating your own new destiny. So today we're going to be talking about the professional image, and that is so important in today's world because in that first 7 seconds, people are judged by all kinds of things outwardly, but silently, and people are judged by their self-image, their outlook on life, their economic and educational levels, their trustworthiness, their social position, their future success. It's not fair, but many times we are judged on those immediately. And within 20 minutes of meeting someone where we're actually speaking to them, they are making all kinds of judgments and decisions about us again, whether they want to continue a relationship with us and to build with us, or whether they would like to go on and talk with someone else. So I'm going to really be working with you each week on ways that we can build relationships, build our lives, and be very confident in the long run. Now, especially in the financial industry, people think, well, how you handle yourself is how you're going to handle my money. And so it's very, very important that we follow some protocol in those areas. And one time when I was working with some students at one of the colleges, and they were in finance and accounting, they said, well, our professor said all that really matters is we have the technical knowledge and the ability. And again, I said, no, they will judge you first of all by how you present yourself physically, how you speak to them, as to whether they want to hire you to work with their business. So these things are very, very important, whether it's the receptionist at the company or the CEO. We always want to be the polished professional. Okay, and a couple examples of how we treat people and how it affects the bottom line, the dollar. One of them is a story that came out recently of a young man who's an entrepreneur, and he opened up a coffee shop. So he literally has a sign out front saying, small coffee, $5. If you just say, coffee please. If you say, hello, I'd like a small coffee please, it goes down to $3 for the same size cup. If you say, hello, how are you today, to the person behind the counter, is it a nice day? I would really appreciate a small cup of coffee. Guess what? It's only $1.75 for the same coffee. So again, he's teaching people how to be very pleasant as they approach others. There was another example of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, one of the expensive hotels, and they were tanking, they were crashing. And then a new CEO came in and he said, you know what? All of our staff are going to treat everybody the same, whether it's a person who just comes in and their maintenance or someone who's very well dressed and has a very expensive lifestyle. You treat everyone the same, you talk to everyone the same, you treat everyone like they're very special. And it wasn't long after that that their financial areas and their business really started booming because people loved to have that kind treatment and that respect. So a little bit about what we'll talk about in the next few minutes are the impressions that we give to other people, skilled business communication skills, talk a little bit about professional appearance, and that's something I will continue to talk to you about in other programs, as well as branding yourself as an expert. And I have a whole program on that will be coming up soon. Now, there was a study done once, too, about that first impression we make, and it was about a man who was 5'10", weighed 143 pounds. Okay, this applies to men and women equally. And so what they did, researchers had the man adopt what they called a lower class stance, where he was just kind of ambling along. He didn't seem very confident at all, and his shoulders were down, his eyes were down. And researchers asked strangers what their opinion of this man was. Overall, people guessed him to be about 5'9", 136, sheepish, and ineffective. Now, I'd say, how would you like to be considered sheepish and ineffective? And he hadn't said a word. It was only by how he carried himself. So then this same gentleman, wearing the same clothing, adopted what was called an upper class stance. His shoulders were rolled back and dropped down, and his chin was up and parallel to the floor. Not arrogant, but very confident in his walk and how he carried himself. Researchers asked other strangers what they thought about this man on first look. They said, oh, they guessed him to be about 5'11", 160, masculine and aggressive. Same man, same clothing, one difference. That was how he carried himself. And so that's something I really want to encourage you on, is to think about that impression that other people give you and how they stand, how they walk, how they move, and same how much of an impression you're giving to the other people. So that is one thing that is really, really important. I remember one time when I went in to see a person about some training that I was giving to the company, and the lady at the front desk had on an extremely low-cut dress. I walked in, said I needed room 220 or something like that. She got up without saying a word, walked off, and left me there for literally about 10 minutes. And my first impression was, oh boy, I'm never coming back here again. And so people will make those judgments very quickly. Now really, I love this phrase. It's called, the most important thing that a person can wear is what? Confidence. Okay? Because the biggest determining factor on whether someone wants to treat us well, respect us, and do business with us is how seriously we're taking ourselves. And that shows up in the confidence that we give off when we're around other people. All forms of communication do affect others, where it's clients, colleagues, friends, business associates, all forms of communication. And good manners, proper speech patterns, careful grooming, professional communication skills will make the difference in whether we get ahead or be left behind. And we all want to get ahead in this world, make more money, and have a good life. Even though it's not fair, people still judge us quite often by how we look, act, how we write, and just how we conduct ourselves in general. So you always want to take those things into account. Someone wants to make sure that the person has good attitude and good communication skills in order to hire them for a job that they will enjoy being in. And in working with human resources in the past, I've always realized not only do we need the right technical skills, the right education and background for a particular job, but I also tell people, how do you fit into their culture? Culture is very, very important. And that's something to think about too when you're looking for a new position. Quite often the winner is really the one with that extra bit of polish. And that could be in their grooming, it could be in their manners, how they treat people, how they greet people, if they treat them with respect, no matter what type of position they have or how they're dressed or anything else. We all treat people the same. And quite often opportunities are lost because the person lacks what we call soft skills. Again, that's the verbal, the nonverbal, and the written communication skills. So that's very, very important. A lot of times colleges will teach on ethics, but not on business etiquette. And quite often I know with the millennials, they had been called for several years more like the McManners generation, because it's getting up, it's, parents were off doing their thing, and the kids really did not have the opportunity to learn the kind of communication skills to get them a better job in this life. And so that's very, very important. How do we gain the competitive edge? 1 is by appearance, 2 is by mannerisms, and 3 is by the drive. What kind of drive do we have to get ahead in this world? And I know from personal experience about being beaten down so much of my life that it's hard sometimes to get that drive, to think that we're worthy, to think that we're valuable enough that we can go out into the world and get what we truly, truly want in our lives. There's a lot of psychological power there as well over people, because people do treat us the way we treat ourselves. You ever notice that? If we treat ourselves well, and I don't again mean arrogant, but if we treat ourselves very well and respect ourselves, other people will. If we treat ourselves like, we grew up and didn't feel like we were valuable or had any worth, that's how I grew up, and sabotaged myself all the time. But if we feel that way, then that's what people will sense, and they'll treat us usually the way we treat ourselves. So always make sure you have that chin up, the shoulders back, and you're a very, very valuable person. So appearance means being well-groomed. It means being attractive, and I don't mean in the how you were born, but how you take care of yourself. For women, a lot of times too, that means, not real heavy makeup, but putting some on, not dressing in a very revealing manner that looks like the person's more interested in other things besides work. Think about mannerisms. What are our mannerisms? Are we pleasant? Are we assertive? Are we confident? Do we have good eye contact? Those types of things as far as mannerisms. What's our body language like? And we'll talk about that in a few minutes, as well as what kind of eye contact and speech patterns. So those are all things that are really, really important. The drive. Do we have a drive to get ahead? Do we have a drive to succeed? Are we willing to take maybe a lower position from what we really wanted and work hard in order to rise up to that? I believe it was Southwest Airlines, the lady who ended up being, I believe it was like the CEO, started out as a secretary. And so you see those things happening a lot of times where people will build their lives up because they have the drive to do so. But think about this. Perception is everything. Why? Because it's our reality. What we perceive to be true, we see as our reality, as really being truth. Other people might perceive us as being very talented, very capable, but maybe we perceive ourselves as the person that maybe a parent or a teacher or a sibling, somebody said we were. And in that case, that's our reality. That's what we appear like. And so people are a lot more persuaded to do things with us, do things for us, if we see that not only do we care about them, but we care about ourselves, we respect ourselves. And so that's very, very important to always have that appearance. And then, when you get in the car, you walk out the door, you're no longer doing business, then kind of let it down and take a breath. But remember, when you're working with people, they're constantly making judgments, whether they're correct or not. Now, one of the things I love, probably more than anything else, is our silent signals, because those send out very, very powerful messages. In the study of communications, it's called kinesics. And it started in the 1950s, and people were wanting to find out what our body signals, what our nonverbal signals have as far as how they affect how people treat us, how they see us. Well, 55% of our communication skills are nonverbal. How we sit, act, walk, stand, how we shake hands, what's going on with our eyes, what kind of little things are we doing. That's 55% of our communication skills are nonverbal. So those are critical. 38% is the quality of our voice. That's our expressions, that's our pitch, and that's the tone of our voice. So sometimes when you hear a person have a negative tone to their voice, maybe they're saying something that's fairly pleasant, but their tone is negative. Listen to the tone. Believe that tone. Believe the nonverbals more than the 7%, which is the actual words that are coming out of our mouths. So that's very, very important. Nonverbals are unconscious signals. We don't think about it usually. We're thinking about what we're saying, and sometimes we're not really matching the body to it. So if someone were to say, oh yeah, everything's great, everything's fine, but you notice they're closed off or their eyes are looking angry or something like that, stop, find out what's going on. You may say something like, you look a little bit concerned. Tell me what's on your mind. Instead of going on beyond it, because if the body language, the facial expressions, postures, what we're doing don't match what's coming out of our mouths, there's a disagreement there, there's a disconnect. So you always want to stop and find out what's going on. One of our biggest goals is to be approachable, be believable. Those are benefits. Negative people can put off an impression that causes people to want to back away, not do business with them, not be friends with them. And so people will consciously read those signals that we have. So just a good reminder there. When you're looking for a job, you're looking for a promotion, you're looking to make a sale too, people will watch your body language. They will watch and see what you're doing and how you're acting. And, is the person's personality coming out as kind, active, has a lot of drive to go forward, or is it coming across maybe obnoxious or shy or feeling inferior? And those are all things that we can work on. I can help you work on those to really become a powerful, stronger person and to receive the things that really, really are important in your life, your goals, your desires. Maybe you've had to put them on the shelf for a while as life took a different approach. But I'd be very happy to work with you in those. We always want to attract people by what we do and what we say. And people will watch that energy level. Is it a real tired energy? Is it very low energy? Is it very lively energy? And sometimes we have to take a deep breath, take some really deep breaths, put a smile on our face, deal with the issue, and then we can kind of relax after that. But think about that, because sometimes I've even had people say, well, gee, what's the matter? You look angry. Because I wasn't at all. It's just that my mouth naturally droops. And so sometimes even asking a confidant or a friend, hey, how do I come off to people? Somebody that's positive. You don't want somebody that's negative, but somebody that's real positive like that. Because if they say, oh yeah, everything's fine, and they go out and slam the door, okay, everything's not fine. And so follow it up with a verbal query and see exactly what's going on. And that will really open up the lines of communication for you. Here are some things that are very, very important as well. Sitting. When you sit, you want to make sure that as you're facing someone, your backside is against the back and you're leaning slightly forward, so you're engaged in talking with this person. Because when we cross our arms, when we turn away, especially for women, a lot of times if they cross their leg over, we do different things like that when we're sitting, or it looks like our foot is bounding towards the door. That will give the impression that, hey, this person really isn't listening to me. And so always think about that as well. How am I sitting? Am I receiving the person, or do I look like I want to run away? Another is crossing body parts. And I tell people that if you cross the arms, what? Could be you're cold, could be you don't know what else to do with your arms, or is it defensive? If the person's kind of moving, turning their body to the side, maybe crossing at their ankles, maybe there's a little bit more going on there than being cold. There's a little bit of a defense there. And so watch people's arms and what they're doing with them. It's very positive if you just open up your palms, open up your fingers, that says, hey, come on in, approach me, let's talk. It's something to do a lot of times if you're in networking events. Hey, come on in, I'm interested in speaking with you. But if they see a lot of this, they're going to go, uh-oh, I'm not approaching that person. They don't look very friendly. And so think about how the arms are crossed, how the body is directed. When you do that, another one is the handshake and a smile, because a handshake is very, very important. It's kind of a universal greeting for the most part. And so always make sure you have a nice, firm handshake. I tell people if you're at an event, you're drinking a beverage, what happens to the hand? It gets all wet and clammy, and then we've got to go, switch glass, wipe my hands on my clothes. Okay, so always hold your glass in your left hand, so your right hand is always free to shake hands, and that's a nice greeting. And you always want to have your hand vertical like this with a nice firm handshake, not a knuckle buster, but a nice firm handshake. None of these little things, because that's a very negative signal that I don't have any confidence in me, or it might be saying, I don't really want to shake your hand. And so make sure you have a nice handshake and keep it vertical. Now, one of the things that happens more to women, but also anybody, is a handshake where they take your hand, and this literally happened to me by a salesman, and they take it like this and they shake your hand like this. What are they doing? They have the upper hand. If you've ever heard that term, have the upper hand, they feel subconsciously they have the upper hand over you and control over you. So just turn it right back up, shake hands, and say, it's very nice to meet you. Okay? And again, you want to say, it's very nice to meet you, rather than I'm happy to meet you. Why? Because it's nice to meet you is putting the attention on the person. And that's also very important as well. As far as a nice handshake, lean in a little bit towards the person as you shake their hand, maybe like 3 pumps. Make sure you had a good handshake there. It says a lot to the other person, and they will stand up and pay attention. Another one is eye contact. Sometimes we're shy, we're embarrassed, and so we don't want to look at the person in the eye. Again, that person might think we're ineffective. They might think we're shifty or sneaky. There's all kinds of impressions that people get, whether they're correct or not. So always make sure you have really good eye contact. Obviously, you want to look away every so often as you're talking to them. If you feel funny about looking them in the eye, look at them right here. Because it looks like you're looking at them in the eye, but you don't have that strange feeling of, oh gosh, you know, I'm looking at somebody in the eye and I feel weird. Another one is mirroring, and this is one of my favorite, and this has been proven time and time again. You know, I remember when I was a little kid and my sisters would say something and I would repeat everything they said just to be obnoxious, okay? But mirroring is something similar than mimicking, only it's very effective in the business world. So what happens is we are maybe having difficulty breaking down walls, whether it's with a person at work, whether it's a family member, whoever it might be. I'm like, oh gosh, you know, I feel like there's this wall up here. So what you do very carefully is maybe they're going like this, okay? So as you're talking to them, you might just put your hand up here very carefully so you don't look like you're doing, you know, things like that. And then maybe they have their hands set out on the desk, and so maybe you could kind of lean forward and put a hand on the desk. But what you're doing is very slowly, not immediately after they do it, is you're doing, hey, I like you, I'm with you, we're on the same wavelength. And when you do that, it's been proven that it breaks down walls and can open up lines of communication. And my best story on that is when a gentleman that I was working with at a radio station came back from an appointment. He was super happy, really happy. He'd made this great big sale. And so, you know, people said, hey, what's going on? What happened? And he said, well, I went in to talk to this guy about buying a big radio package. He didn't want to talk to me. He didn't want to look at me. He was kind of rude. So Val said he started mirroring what this guy was doing, you know, with just different things with his body, with his hands. And then he said after a while, the guy mellowed out. He became friendly. He ended up actually buying a very large radio package. And we thought, what made the difference? It was because of that connection. And he even told him, he said, you know what? He said, when you first came in here, I didn't like you at all. And I thought, oh my goodness. But he said, I like you now, and I don't know why. And that was because that he felt connected with Val now. And so that's something to remember is mirroring. Another one is what we call steepling. And so basically what that is, I've seen politicians do it, I've seen all kinds of people do it, CEOs, when they're having a conversation, whether if they're sitting, they will do this. That's a barrier. That's a nonverbal barrier that says, I'm in charge. You're not coming past this. You're not coming at me. You can do that standing where you have your hands in front of you. As you walk, you can just, you know, walk back and forth as you're giving a presentation. And sometimes you can do that. And that is very positive if you steeple that way. Another way to do that is you take your fingertips together, put your elbows out at the side when you're talking to someone, when you're presenting. What that does is it gives you more presence, more space. People start thinking you're bigger, you're stronger, you're much more effective than maybe you feel you are. So always remember steepling and do this with your hands. Honestly, it really works. Another one is pointing. A lot of times people feel like even if you hand them a pen to sign a paper, if you take that pen and you go like this, would you sign this please? What's happening? They feel like they're being pointed at. And so always hold the pen just like you were writing, would you sign this please? It's a little thing, but a lot of times that will have some pretty powerful messages on people. And then lastly, for this particular program, a little bit on diversity. And that doesn't mean only within cultures. That means between men and women. You know, anybody that's different, we always have to be careful with diversity. We have to learn about cultures. And I remember working with a lady one time, and she had a program where, a business where she was working with a lady from China who worked in New York City. And so the lady had a very, very, very thick Chinese accent. And so every time Ione would talk to her, she would actually yell into the phone, thinking that that somehow made her able to hear her better. And so the lady said, look, I not speak good English, but I not deaf either. And so always think about that. And again, watch how people react to you, and then you know how to respond back to them. So I hope this has been very helpful today. Again, I'm Rita Rocker with Transformation Academy, here to help you. Stay tuned. We're going to be talking about a lot of really great topics for you to grow and to learn and to create your own new destiny. Thank you.